Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Livfiit Listens podcast. Today, we're on episode 78. Boy, am I juiced up for this one. I just want to say this one is dedicated. You can thank Grandma Catania. My grandmother is the one with these words of wisdom. Technically, she didn't tell me, I don't have this heartwarming story where she told me this quote for the first time, but my dad was the one that told me, and he said, Grandma always used to say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, which we're going to dive into this episode. But first, my gratitude for today. How could I not be thankful for my grandparents, especially when I'm thinking of them during this episode? This one's definitely dedicated to them. My grandparents, both my grandma and my grandpa, they are just rock stars. I hope that I am half of what they are at their age. They just inspire me, and I just am so thankful for them because so much of my childhood, when I think of my happy memories, has to do with my grandparents in some sense. So I'm really so thankful for them, and I'm excited to see them in a few weeks when I go to visit home back in upstate New York. Basically, I want this whole episode to be about this one quote, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, because I've been wanting to do this episode for quite some time now, literally since before I left for Costa Rica. And I feel like I've truly been living, embodying and acting on this quote the past 4 or 5 months. And I really have been able to see how much more life has become available to me and how much it's changed my life. So really what this quote means, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, is it's essentially saying to speak the fook up for what you're desiring. And the reason why I love the way this quote is worded so much, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, is because it doesn't feel like it's this kind of sense of entitlement or anything. To me, when I think of the squeaky wheel gets the oil, traditionally the squeaky wheel is the one that needs attending to, right? It needs care, it needs help, and that's the one that then it squeaks, right, to then be able to receive the aid, or which in this case is the oil. So I love the quote specifically because it just kind of reminds you not to ask for things that are unnecessary, or simply just asking for the sake of asking, right? It's genuine needs, right? If you speak up for it, you should feel comfortable you have the right to speak up for it. And that's when you're going to be able to receive assistance. And the thing is, we take ourselves out of the game so much by just simply not speaking up. We just assume that the answer is going to be no, that it's an inconvenience, whatever the case may be. So we just don't even ask in the first place, which that's a traditional quote. If you don't ask, the answer is always no, obviously. But it's so often we make the whole situation up to be a bigger deal in our head by saying something, when in reality, it's not a big deal at all. And just the act of asking is what makes it seem like the biggest deal of everything. You know what I'm saying? When it's really not a big deal. It's just you getting over that mental hump of just speaking and voicing and expressing your needs that you have. That's what seems to be the biggest barrier, rather than the actual situation itself of asking for help or asking for this and asking for that. And I kind of want to give an example of this because I feel like this can be taken in so many different senses, and I want it to. I want this to apply in the workplace, with friends, when you're looking for opportunities, and little things when you're in the grocery store. So for me, the way this has been kind of showing up, a super simple example, I was in Whole Foods and I wanted to get some pizza dough to make homemade pizza, and all the dough that they had were frozen. And from that point on, we could have just been oh damn, I guess they don't have any available pizza dough for us tonight. Maybe we'll get a pre-made, pizza that's from the freezer section, or dough from elsewhere, whatever the case may be. And I was no, let me just go ask behind the counter at Whole Foods if they have some in the pizza section, the little why can't I think of it? The food court area of Whole Foods. If I can just go ask the guy who's trying to make pizzas back there if they have any fresh dough back there. And I went over, I asked, and what do you know? Yeah, actually, we have a couple more defrosted doughs back here. You can totally take one and buy one. Boom. It's little things like that can seem so simple, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it helps so much with, making your life be so much smoother and just being a happier individual. On the contrary, something a little bit more serious, when I'm negotiating deals with brands and stuff, I feel like I used to be much more timid and just kind of had the viewpoint of quote unquote, taking what you can get. And I wasn't always the thing with that mindset as well, when we're too afraid to ask for things or just like taking what we can get and making do with what we have, it's like that to me, it's like you're just by accepting what you have because you feel like you can't ask for more. Like that's just a lack mentality. Like that's not you thinking in an abundance mindset. And for some reason we're taught that like it's shameful to ask for more in our life, which I just don't agree with. Again, I feel like that's just like this lack mindset. And by you not having the courage to ask and express yourself for more, if you genuinely need more, you're just giving your power away, right? You're not being discerning. You're not understanding your worth. You're not sticking up for your worth, and you're not kind of taking control of the conversation, I want to say, in a way, by you speaking up for your needs. Like for me, I don't, of course, and this is always like within reason, as all of my episodes, like this is respectfully, right? Like I'm not saying for you to go up to your friend and say that they're your bitch and like make them do all these things, or be rude to a worker at a grocery store because you think that like, again, I'm not speaking in the sense of you speaking or asking from a place of entitlement, right? There's totally a way to ask. Rather than asking out of entitlement, it's you asking out of gratitude, right? So as with everything, like use your common sense. This isn't me just saying to walk all over everyone. It's always within reason. And I totally think there's a way to ask, which this also goes back to a book that I read that I always keep in mind. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a very famous book. I want to say it's by Napoleon Hill, I believe. And there's just a basic kind of principle. I remember specifically speaking in terms of business when you're asking someone for a deal. It basically spoke about a way to prep your ask. And I genuinely use that with how I negotiate brand deals and stuff and talk to brands, and it genuinely works insanely well. And now I always think of that just in terms of everything, where it's not necessarily what you're asking, it's how you're asking. And again, it's not to say that it's done in a manipulative way or like with a, ulterior motive. It's just simply rewording it so your delivery actually matches your intention, because a lot of times our delivery doesn't come out the way that we intended to, you know what I mean? Or it sounds worse than it is, or whatever the case may be. Like it doesn't necessarily match what our true intention is. And so really playing with how you ask something really goes so far in increasing the likelihood that it's going to be given, I guess, if that makes sense. I think another thing, like diving into my spirituality aspect of me and like believing in energetics and all that sort of stuff and knowing everything's energy, like I swear this specifically works so well because it's such like an energy thing. Like to me, it's kind of like a declaration for what you want. You're declaring what you want. You're stating what you want. You're basically like setting the bar, I guess, if you will. I don't want to use the word expectation, but you're just kind of like setting the bar for what you want. You're declaring what you want. You're being discerning, and then the universe provides. And that's just the law of the universe. Like the universe is always, always, always supporting our thoughts and desires, which is a quote from, not a direct quote, but that's also from The Alchemist, which totally beautifully speaks on behalf of that. But that's why I always preach, like whatever's going on in your head is what's going to be reflected in your reality, because this goes for everything, right? I'm not just trying to say if you're thinking of a Porsche Cayenne, the universe is going to deliver a Porsche Cayenne, but it goes in the sense of like also on the contrary, if you're constantly believing that no one likes you or that you have no friends or that like the world is an awful place, the universe is going to support those thoughts that you're having and continue to show proof to you in your day-to-day life of those things that you believe in. And so that's why I'm such an advocate of believing and feeding yourself with positive thoughts, because that is what the universe is going to support and echo back to you. And that's again where that quote comes in, that everything is a mirror. It's everything that you already embody as a human, who you are, is what's going to be reflected back to you. So by you kind of declaring by you voicing what you're asking, what your needs are, you declaring and being clear, about what you're desiring is what then kind of just allows the universe to show it to you. Like I swear it's so crazy because I've like been experiencing it firsthand, and every time I've been speaking up in the past like 4 or 5 months, I hear in my head, like I hear my grandma saying the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I think we would just be so shocked how much really is possible for us if we just say something, if we speak up, because like I said, like so many of us just take ourselves out of the game. And I want you guys to think of this actually, like how often if let's put this in a friendly basis, right? You have a friend and you need a ride to the airport and you're like hesitating saying something, and you don't want to inconvenience them, you don't want to ask, and then after the fact they find out that you Ubered to the airport and they're like, dude, why didn't you say something? I would have totally had no problem in taking you, right? That's like a perfect example with what I mean of like we kind of chalk all these things up in our head to make them a bigger deal than it is. Like we have more anxiety of the anticipation of asking or of the hypothetical thought that it's going to be a huge burden to someone, when really usually it's not that way. It's just we think it's that way in our head. And also kind of going back to human nature, more often than not, like humans love being needed. Like I know my friend Anna, she's such a good friend, like in terms of like her acts of service, kind of like gifts with her time is such a huge love language for her. And like she loves feeling needed and like there's a way for her to help. And so I think so many of us just kind of assume things and discount things that like people won't want to do things to help us, when a lot of the times like they do want to help us. Like you can reflect on yourself, like when you help someone, how good does it make you feel, right? How joyful does it make you feel? It makes you feel fulfilled, right, in a way. And so it's like so many more people than you think would be so happy to extend a hand to you. But again, you have to believe that in your headspace for that to be able to be reflected back to you, because I also think like everything is always the presentation and delivery of things. So it's like if you're delivering it and in your head you're already thinking like cringing, like, oh no, like this is going to be a really big burden, like blah, blah, blah. Like that energy that you're emitting with your question, with your ask, is resistance filled. It's fueled by fear, right? Rather than you being fueled by love, by you fueling your question, by stepping into your power and kind of in a sense of declaration. There's totally two different feels of that same question. And I think, you know, when you're in your power and asking something of someone respectfully, right, and within reason, I want to reiterate that, respectfully and within reason, I feel like that you stepping into that empowered energy calls the other person in the situation to step into their power and step into their stronger energy and deliver with love, right? Because you initiated the conversation, you initiated the question in love, and now that can be more so the dynamic of the conversation rather than you coming in through fear or doubt or worry or anxiety and having the other person feel that and act on that behalf. I just feel like it's crazy, like the amount of situations that I've had in my life lately, like in the past 5 months, where I just literally am like, you know what, F it, I'm just going to freaking ask. And like, it seems like there's almost always a yes. And it's like, it just is such another, I always talk about lack mindsets versus abundance mindsets. And I have a whole podcast episode as well on that if you want to check that out. Probably about like 20 episodes back now at this point. But it's just amazing. Like it's just another expression of either living in a lack mentality or an abundance mindset. It's like if you have a genuine need for something, or you genuinely feel like something is worth something else and you want to stick up for that, and you're asking for a different price point, or you're asking for a different rate, or you're asking for just something more to be more fairly compensated in whichever font that you know, whatever situation you want to apply that to, that is you understanding and sticking up for your worth or the worth of a situation that you see. And that's you thinking abundantly that you will be able to be appropriately reciprocated for and compensated for the value that you're bringing in, again, whatever font that looks like for you. And I always want to play devil's advocate because I think it's really powerful. I touched on this in my episode about judgment. What kind of perspective shifts happens when you really switch places with other people? I always say with judgment, usually the people who are most fearful of judgment are the ones that are judging others the most. And I will die on that hill. It's so true. Whether it's subconsciously or consciously, or you're judging yourself all the time, so you think other people are judging you. And I think that really clearly goes hand in hand with this situation, where if you feel like you're at a restaurant and someone asks, hey, you know, this wasn't correct, I asked for this and not for this, and you roll your eyes at someone who asked to have that be corrected for something that they genuinely wanted, ask yourself why. Why do you get irritated by someone speaking up for something that is right to them? Again, respectfully, considering they're doing it nicely. It's like, what's so bad about them just simply stepping up for something that they asked for, that they feel like they deserve? Like for me, that means that they're someone that is in their power, and we should all want everyone to feel fully fulfilled and feel like they're fully tapping into their full potential in whatever way it looks like for them, whether that's them ordering something at a restaurant or that's for them fighting for a certain position in their workplace. Like, I think it applies to everywhere, and that there's also a great quote, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it's like how you show up in the small things really dictates how you show up in the bigger things too. And so it's like, I really encourage you guys to flip that narrative. Like if that bothers you, if I ask the guy to go in the back to look for pizza dough because you feel like I'm inconveniencing that person, it's like, why does that mean that you would be pissed because you were inconvenienced to help someone get something that they were needing or wanting? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say to bring this full circle, for me, if the tables were flipped, if I was working in Whole Foods and someone was really looking for unfrozen pizza dough because they needed it, I would be so stoked that I would be able to be the one to like get them this defrosted pizza dough for them that they needed that night, that like I was the answer for them. You know what I mean? So it's like, it just makes sense to me in my brain to want to help the other person fully in their entirety to fulfill their desire. And so it's like, that's why I feel comfortable now asking for things no matter how big or small, because if I was on the other hand of it, I would want to fulfill that person's desire as well. And I think I always want to try to live in my power as much as I can, and me stepping up and asking for my desires, for my needs, for what I feel like I deserve has truly transformed my life. And it's also helped me so much with my confidence as well. And it just has helped me stick up for myself in other areas, whether it's a need or not. Like, aside from this, if it's actually something I need or feel like I deserve, I just feel like as a whole, I just feel more confident now to express myself and express my truth in whichever way that looks like. But I feel like, especially for women, you guys, any women listening to me right now, which a majority of you guys are, but like, I just really want you guys to have this message really hit home for you, because especially as women, like, we're so constantly suppressed in the grand scheme, like traditionally is kind of the main viewpoint, or like we just always feel like shy or ashamed to ask for more. But like, you are worthy to ask for more, you are capable to ask for more, you deserve to ask for more. Again, respectfully and within reason. I'm not using this to say like you should be asking from a sense of entitlement, but again, just have it be coming from a sense of your power, of knowing your worth, of knowing what you deserve, and understand that you have the right to ask for whatever that you feel you deserve and is just in that situation. You have the right to speak up for it. So I really feel like this is a life lesson for all. Like, I feel like this is something I'm constantly going to be carrying with me through my life, because circling back to that concept where I said, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. It's like we close ourselves off to so many opportunities in life, and just things that we would have been able to seize, like seizing so many different opportunities and just seizing life, because we just were too freaking scared to ask. Like, it's just as crazy. Like, and this could be going to anything. Like, let's say you're vacationing in Greece and there's people standing next to a freaking yacht and they seem kind of, approachable and whatever, and you're close to them and you go up and make conversation. Literally, hey, what are you guys doing for the rest of the day? Not saying to be like, hey, can you take me on your yacht? But like, just simply taking risks in the sense of just simply asking, opening up conversations. It's just like, you never know where it's going to go. And like, it can open doors to so many different things. Like, you see someone out, they seem cool, could be a new friend. Hey, what's your Instagram? Hey, do you like XYZ? Do you want to come here with me? Whatever the case may be. It's like simply just taking that first step and taking initiative goes so far. And I think in business, especially anyone who is on the entrepreneurial route, who listens to me and listens to this podcast, like, I think that's been the biggest thing that's allowed me to progress in business, is simply knowing my worth, knowing what I deserve, knowing what I feel is fair, and acting on that, and just simply freaking asking and being an advocate for my belief. And when it comes to companies and things like that, and like, I truly feel like I've seen the return right in front of my eyes just simply because I've asked. And it's like, I don't mean to turn this into a power struggle type thing, but kind of back to what I said, how it's like you're giving your power away by not asking, or like just accepting what you're giving. Like, you're making the ball be in the other person's court, when I just feel like the most kind of say and power comes from when the ball's in your court and when you're in your power. So you being the one to declare things, or having someone say, here's my offer, and you saying, this is great, I really appreciate it, but this is what I feel like is more appropriate for this job. Here's my counter offer, whatever it is, just goes so far and gives you your power back and allows you to make sure that you feel justified, and makes you feel like you're actually getting what you deserve. Because you guys, kind of going off the deep end here, but like, all these little things, when we don't speak up for ourselves, or when we're constantly feel like we're subconsciously getting shorted on things, or we really wanted this but we didn't speak up, all those things add up. They're little micro additions to this big concept of resentment that ends up compiling after the fact. And it's so freaking real. And that's what makes us end up later falling into victim mode, because we feel like we never get what we deserve. We feel like we never get what we actually want. leads us to feeling like we're constantly getting cheated in life, that we're never like getting all the things that we deserve. It adds freaking up. And it's like, then we think and we turn around and we look around and we're like, damn, life is so unfair for me. I have all this bad luck. I never get these good situations. When it's like, is that really the case? Or have you slowly been affirming that narrative by you not speaking up for your needs and desires in life? And that was a hot take right there. That kind of just came to me. I didn't even write that down, but it's kind of really true. It's like, is that just kind of quote unquote the cards you've been dealt, or is that reality that you've been micro affirming every single day through your lack of action, I should say, rather than your action towards speaking up and declaring what you want? And I think that's so real. And I think that's kind of goes back into circling into my whole big preaching mission that I always preach with this podcast of how your thoughts create your reality, and you like the whole concept of manifestation, all this sort of stuff, and creating your own reality. It's like, I don't say this stuff that it's magic and it's like poof, you wave your magic wand and this just appears in front of you. No, like manifestation is the embodiment that you're taking on every single day with the words you're speaking, how you speak about yourself to others, how you show up for yourself, how you show up for different jobs and things like that. And those micro actions on the day-to-day accumulate into your life because each action has a reaction. And that's why every single like thought is so important, because your thought then creates an emotion, and we always act out of emotion or have it be act out of your thoughts, whatever way you want to say it. That's where our line of action always formulates from. It's from our thoughts and emotions. When you feel good, you want to do good. When you feel shitty, you're unmotivated, you don't want to do anything. And so that's why your life really does get so dictated by the thoughts and emotions that you have and how you show up on the micro scale every single day. I kind of got off on a little tangent there, but it's so real. And I just really want you guys to feel super empowered and safe enough to express your desires. And I just think it's so badass. And like, I feel so in my power. Again, I think episode 2 was called Step Into Your Power. Second ever episode of this podcast. Still one of the best episodes to date, most successful episodes. And it's so freaking true. Like, once you step into your power in life, like that's when life feels so abundant. It's like, and I was actually having such an interesting conversation the other day, now that I think about it, with one of my guy friends, and we were talking about the difference between masculine and feminine energy. And it was very interesting because he was speaking how masculines tend to just go out and get and seize their opportunity rather than kind of asking for it, which tends to be more of this like feminine aspect. And I'm all about embracing your femininity, of course, but I also know that everyone has masculine and feminine energy within them. And I think there was just a really good lesson that he stated that like in your masculine, when like that masculine energy has this nature, this tendency to just go seize what they want, step into it and declare it. And I think that is totally kind of what I'm speaking on in this narrative here of the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Like, we always need to work on this beautiful flow and this beautiful balance and dance between embodying both masculine and feminine energy. And I do feel like this is more of a masculine action, which is obviously nothing wrong with that. So I'm just trying to say, like, when I visualized it in that masculine energy, it was more digestible to me in an interesting way to just kind of say, yeah, you're right, F it. Like, this is what I deserve. This is what I'm desiring. And I'm going to declare that this is what I'm going to have by asking for it and going to get it. And I guess I should clarify, because I did say the feminine asks for it. I meant kind of the feminine energy seems like the feminine is kind of sitting back and waiting to receive, I guess is a better way to put it, where the masculine is like going to go and grab it and take it, I guess. And that's kind of the energy that I feel with this quote, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. It's like, if you want this opportunity, go reach out and grab it. You can't always just wait for someone to hand it to you or for it always to fall into your lap, especially when it's something that you can control. I think, again, I always say this in terms of manifestation, it's always aligned action coupled with full belief in whatever you're trying to manifest. And so no matter what anyone says about manifestation, like, there still is action that is needed to be taken. And there's different, you can take action from your feminine or from your masculine, whatever the case may be, but action still needs to be taken in some sense to help you work towards your goals. And this is a perfect example that if there's a certain opportunity you want to seize, or a certain compensation that you feel you're worthy for, or anything, you need to speak up for it, and you need to be able to reach out and grab it, or else no one else is going to give it to you. And that's kind of like another traditional quote, like, no one's here to save you, right? It's like, you need to be your own advocate, which I touched on this in another podcast episode. You need to know your worth enough to be an advocate for it, because also the fact of the matter is, no one's going to give you something if you're not kind of an advocate for it, especially when you're out of school and there's like these awards that used to be given to us. It's like when you're in the real freaking world, especially when you're in the entrepreneurship lane, like you need to stand up, you need to speak up for what you're desiring. You need to share your worth for other people to see your worth, or else there's no really opportunity for them to see it. So I think that goes really far. And I think this go-getter mentality, I think, helps so much when you have these goals in life that are not just kind of going to achieve themselves. You know what I mean? Like you have to take action to get there. So that's everything that I have for this podcast episode. Kind of went on a little rant there, but just remember, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Next time you're wondering, like, I kind of want this, I don't want to be an inconvenience, or is that going to be too much to ask? Cut the crap. Say, I'm embodying an abundance mindset. I know my worth. I know what I deserve. I'm not acting entitled. I'm not making someone jump through a million hoops. I'm simply just knowing my worth, and I'm asking for reciprocity for the value that I'm providing. So I'm going to ask for it, right? Whatever the case may be, just know the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You are worthy. You are deserving. You are capable. You have the right to ask. It's not against the law. It's not a crime. It's not this awful thing. You're not an awful person for asking. It's you honoring your needs, whether it's you needing a different variation of something at the grocery store, or you feeling like you deserve a different compensation for a certain project you did at work. Whatever the case may be, it all applies. So for the affirmation for this episode, I know that more life is available to me when I speak up for my needs and desires. I know that more life is available to me when I speak up for my needs and desires. Hell to the yeah. Hey, that was a good one. Ooh, that was so good. I really hope this episode hit home for you guys, because it really hits me in the freaking gut, and I just hope that I explained it correctly, but I feel like the quote in and of itself does enough. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Also, just want to touch base again. I am hosting a Bali retreat May 2nd to May 9th of 2024. If you're interested, we're going to be doing a lot of inner work. It's pretty spiritual, also into personal development. If you're looking to travel, meet new people, I definitely would recommend it and check it out. There's more information down below in the show notes in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support this podcast in a way that is completely free to you, you can leave a rating and review if you haven't already. And if you did, you can also screenshot this episode, share it on your story, Instagram story, tag me, or share it with family or friends. Whatever the case may be, it really helps this podcast grow and reach more people and impact more lives, which is always my goal. I appreciate your guys' time so much. Seriously, thank you so much. I hope this podcast brought you some value. I'm sending you so much love, and hopefully I'll see you next Monday. Peace out.